Think about the biggest homes you've ever seen. Those homes are nothing compared to the ones in today's video. These homes are absolutely massive. So join me, I'm gonna count down the top 15 biggest mansions in the world. Number 15, Witanhurst Palace. Alright, the first entry on this list does the impossible by putting all of the other mega mansions to shame. It's located in Brunei. The Witanhurst Palace is the official residence of the Sultan of Brunei and provides him with his much-needed 2.1 million square feet of space. Damn. So do you think that's a little much? Yeah, well, the Sultan and his family probably don't, and you wouldn't either, I guess, if you got to live there. The Witanhurst Palace has 1,788 rooms and 257 bathrooms and a mosque that fits up to 1,500 people. Then there's the 200 polo pony stables, 5 swimming pools, and the 110-car garage. The palace's name translates to Palace of Faith Light, and it was designed back in 1984 and cost almost $1.5 billion to build. And the value's probably gone up since then. When you look at the palace's exterior, you'll notice the gold domes and vaulted roofs, which combined with the local Malay and Islamic architectures, it creates the most extravagant home in the world. But don't worry, because the Sultan and his family aren't the only people here. The palace may serve as their private home, but it's also where foreign dignitaries stay when they come to visit. The palace is also open to visitors 3 days a year at the end of Ramadan, when guests are served food to break their fast. Witanhurst Palace, man, it's the type of home I guess you can really sink your teeth into. Number 14, Villa Leopolda. One of the most expensive homes in the world, Villa Leopolda sits right on the French Riviera and it's owned by Lily Safra, widow of billionaire banker Edmond Safra. While she must miss her husband terribly, Safra was left with a pretty penny to take care of herself, as well as this insane beachfront property. Villa Leopolda sits on 50 acres in the Alpes Maritimes department of the Côte d'Azur and is so world-renowned that it served as the setting for the great Alfred Hitchcock film To Catch a Thief in 1955. So what is so special about this French villa, other than the views, the acreage, and the fact that it's a mountain retreat? Well, the property's home to a commercial greenhouse, an outdoor kitchen, the obvious pool, and even a helipad, so Miss Safra can come and go as she pleases from just about anywhere in the world. Even for those who have never heard of this billionaire's estate, the name Leopolda should ring a bell for many. The villa is named after the same Leopold II of Belgium, who owned the Villa Les Cedres, the 200-year estate on the coast of Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat, and another one of the priciest palaces on the planet. The king had a lot of money, and he knew how to spend it, and he gifted this French villa to his mistress in the early 20th century. The home's undergone plenty of renovations since then and is worth nearly $1 billion today. Number 13, Buckingham Palace. Okay, although it is a palace, it's important to remember that Buckingham Palace is still someone's permanent residence. The royal mansion has an incredible 775 rooms with 52 royal and guest bedrooms, 78 bathrooms, and 92 offices. And it's so big that for all the king knows, people have been living there for decades without anyone even noticing. How hard would it be to stay in there without getting found out? And while the Crown owns plenty of castles and estates throughout the UK, they've owned Buckingham Palace for almost 200 years. Just think of all the history and stories embedded into those walls. And while Buckingham Palace isn't going to be put up for sale probably ever, you can most definitely put a price on it. In all, the estimated value of this palatial royal residence is about $3 billion. The palace contains the Queen's Gallery, which exhibits the royal art collection. I wonder if they're going to change that to the King's Gallery. Well, it includes historic Fabergé eggs and even drawings by Leonardo da Vinci, making Buckingham Palace not only a private residence, but a museum in its own right. In all, Buckingham Palace has about 828,000 square feet of floor space, much of which will never be seen by the public. The largest room in the residence, though, is the ballroom at 120 feet long and 60 feet wide, and the ceilings are 45 feet tall. One final fun fact about the palace is that it uses these distinct signals that often go unnoticed by the rest of the rabble. While she was still living, the palace would fly the Royal Standard flag to alert her presence within the walls, and while she was away, be on the lookout for the Union Jack whipping in the cold British wind. Sometimes when you have a mansion as large as Buckingham Palace, it's the smaller touches that tend to stand out the most. Number 12, the One Bel Air. The One Bel Air is the kind of mansion the Fresh Prince could only really dream of living in. Spanning almost 100,000 square feet, the house at One Bel Air isn't just one of the most expensive in the world, it's also one of the largest in the United States. This amazingly lavish property was developed by Niall Niami and designed by architect Paul McLean, and the entire endeavor took about 10 years to complete this thing. The The home for the rich and famous has 26-foot-high ceilings, 21 bedrooms, 5 swimming pools, 42 bathrooms, and a 30-car garage gallery, and puts the home of even the richest neighbors to shame. And of course, the house at One Bel Air sits on top of a hill with panoramic views of downtown Los Angeles, the San Gabriel Mountains, and the Pacific Ocean. So the owner can get just about every type of view depending on their mood. And of course, there's the price tag, and you can be sure that a place like this isn't gonna come cheap. The One Bel Air Mansion was originally on the market for $340 million, but it wasn't until 2022 that a buyer came along. They managed to get the estate at a massive discount though, having only paid $126 million. Number 11. Witanhurst Mansion. The Witanhurst Mansion in London, England is a Georgian revival built back in the early 20th century, and since that time it's been home to some pretty prominent and wealthy figures. It's even been used as the filming location for big-time movies like The Lost Prince, Tipping the Velvet, and Fame Academy. So, needless to say, the Witanhurst Mansion has, quite literally, a rich history, and so it should make sense that it's one of the most expensive homes in the world. But it's also old and was subject to some natural wear and tear over the years, so it underwent a substantial refurbishment in 2008, which only adds to the value further. This London mansion is the second largest residence in London with 90,000 square feet of space to explore and a grand total of 65 rooms, 25 of which are bedrooms. But one of the largest and most extravagant rooms here is the ballroom. It's 70 feet long with 20-foot ceilings. And the Witanhurst Mansion, it also has a massive dining room, gallery room, and billiard room for when you want to shoot some pool at the end of a long day. And you know what? All this only costs $450 million. Yeah, I got that in my back pocket. Number 10. Sanctuary at Loon Point. Alright, bringing it back over to sunny Santa Barbara County, California, we've got the perfectly named beachfront property simply known as the Sanctuary at Loon Point. This amazing chateau can be yours as long as you're willing to shell out $160 million bucks. Speaking of shells, you can't talk about the sanctuary without talking about the view. This giant piece of property sits right at the edge of a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and seeing as how this is a private property, that means you don't have to share that view with anyone else. That's not a bad deal. The entire sanctuary at Loon Point Estate is roughly 22 acres of land, which you'll find is pretty easy to get lost in. But the property also includes 5 separate land parcels, all of which are connected via the private and gated road, making anyone lucky enough to live there feel like they're in Californian royalty. The sanctuary at Loon Point was built by uber-millionaire hedge fund owner Bruce Kovner and offers not one, but 2 mansions, both of which offer about 8,000 square feet of space. They both hold 10 bedrooms each and another 21 bathrooms, plus a spa, cabana, and pools if you don't feel like making the hike down to the ocean. There's even your very own citrus grove right on the property. This place is amazing, and even with the 2 mansions there, there's still so much land left that even anyone could easily build a few more homes if they so choose. Number 9. Versace Mansion. Alright, it may not be what it once was, but the Versace Mansion in Miami Beach, Florida has thousands of stories to tell within its walls. When Gianni Versace purchased the 60-year-old villa, it needed some serious updates, and of course the world-famous designer was up to the task. He took what was originally a 24-apartment villa and converted it into a single home, complete with 10 bedrooms and bathrooms, 2 kitchens, a bar, a library, and 3 living rooms. And because that wasn't enough for him, the Italian fashion mogul had 6,100 square feet of an addition built to include a gym and a steam room, and a shower big enough for 8 people. What? Why? How much did all this run him? Well, a whopping $32 million. I guess today's millionaires and billionaires can buy a brand new mansion for that kind of cash, but Gianni Versace knew that he was meant to own this historic villa. When you made your way past the villa's famous bedrooms, like the Venus and Medallion suites, there was even an observatory on the 3rd floor. The roof's domed ceiling was painted with a beautiful deep blue and dotted with gold stars, letting his guests feel like they were one with the cosmos. This observatory has become so famous that allegedly, even Drake took advantage of the acoustics, recording music inside it. Number 8. Pensmore Mansion. Located in the Ozark Mountains of Missouri, the Pensmore Mansion is one of the largest homes in the country at 72,000 square feet. Standing 5 stories tall, it holds 14 bathrooms and 13 bedrooms, and with exterior walls about a foot thick, it's built to withstand even the nastiest of earthquakes. In fact, the Pensmore Mansion can allegedly even hold up against other natural disasters like an EF5 tornado, and even man-made mayhem like bullet fire and bomb blasts. So why the hell would someone want to wage war against this palatial home? Well, it's anybody's guess, but it is quite impressive nevertheless. And perhaps one of the few homes capable of surviving the apocalypse thanks to the reinforced sustainable concrete. This giant home is owned by none other than Stephen T. Huff, an American astrophysicist, inventor, and philanthropist with an incredibly impressive resume. A former employee of the United States Army and CIA, Tuff founded multiple defense and intelligence companies, which he would eventually sell to amass about $80 billion in assets. In 2015, Tuff went on the record stating his mansion in the Ozarks should stand for the next 2,000 years. And I guess when you're as rich as this man is, maybe you can afford the technology to keep you alive for that long. Well, construction finally wrapped up in 2016 after an 8-year endeavor, and Tuff purposefully built Pensmore in an area not subject to the government building inspections or regulations, meaning he gave himself carte blanche to do quite literally whatever he wanted, hence the bulletproof walls. But when you have a house such as this, conspiracy theories will abound. Many online pseudo-sleuths believe the Pensmore Mansion is used to house state-of-the-art defense systems, while others believe it's just a one-way entry to a series of underground tunnels spanning the North American continent that the Illuminati plan to use in case of a world-ending war. Whatever the case may be, while some conspiracy theories are certainly fun to play around with and think about, odds are the Pensmore home is just a massive project of an eccentric billionaire. Number 7. 4 Fairfield Pond. Ira Rennert, CEO and chairman of Renco Group and all-around billionaire, is the lucky owner of 4 Fairfield Pond, an Italian Renaissance-style home in the Hamptons. Alright, there's no denying that the Hamptons is one of the wealthiest and most extravagant locations in the United States, but 4 Fairfield Pond really puts some neighbors to shame. The palatial home sits on 63 acres of beachfront property that Rennert can enjoy all to himself. The mansion is an insane 62,000 square feet of space with 29 bedrooms, so the man can sleep in a new room just about every night for a month. 39 bathrooms, and what mansion would be complete, of course, without a 91-foot dining room? That sounds like more like a banquet hall, if anything. Hopefully for his guests, though, Ira Rennert knows how to throw a party, and I'm sure that any children lucky enough to step foot inside this Hamptons home will have a good game of never-ending hide-and-seek, which would be sweet. But when the folks want to have a little fun, there's the bowling alley, squash courts, tennis courts, and 3 swimming pools, a basketball court, and the icing on the cake, a garage that can hold up to 100 cars. And all of this can be yours for the price of $248 million. Number 6. Villa Les Cedres. Alright, moving things over to France now, we have the Villa Les Cedres. This palatial home was originally built in 1830, and it was bought in 1904 by King Leopolda II of Belgium. Flip through the calendar about 200 years into the future, and the house went up for sale in 2017 by the Campari Group, the home's current owner, and they are asking a king's ransom for it as well. The Villa Les Cedres sits on a humble 35 acres of land, most of which are covered in very well manicured gardens and cedar trees, where the villa earns its name. The home itself is an 18,000 square foot estate with 14 bedrooms. You'll never get bored in a place like this, but moving about the villa that looks more like a palace, and you'll notice all sorts of decadent interiors like the numerous crystal chandeliers, intricately carved woodwork, and all sorts of 19th century oil paintings. And for when the people get bored, the owner can step outside to the stables and go for a trot with the horses around the property, and maybe even stop by their Olympics-high swimming pool. So how much was the Campari Group asking for the Villa Les Cedres? Only $410 million. What a bargain. Number 5. The Gemini Mansion. Once the most expensive house in the United States, the Gemini Mansion feels like more of a resort than it does a single-family home, and that's probably because it takes up to 16 acres of space, extending from land to sea. It's an absolute marvel of a mansion just outside of Palm Beach, Florida, holding 12 bedrooms in the main house, another 7 in the guest cottage, and a total of 34 bathrooms. Yet the Gemini Mansion has been around since the 1940s, and it's the former home of fashion icon and socialite Gloria Guinness. Nowadays, though, it's owned by tech billionaire and former Oracle CEO Larry Ellison. But it's the view that's priceless, offering 1,200 feet of frontage right on the Atlantic Ocean and another 1,300 feet on the Intercoastal Waterway. Living here is as close to owning a slice of paradise as you're gonna get. That is, if you've got that cash. Designed by architect Marion Sims Wyeth in the 1940s, the Gemini Mansion was originally the home of the Lambert pharmaceutical family, who would probably be happy knowing that their old beachfront home is passed on and on and on again amongst the world's richest people. Number 4. Linwood Hall. Alright, next up on the list is Linwood Hall. This place is a gorgeous home in Elkin Park, Pennsylvania. The estate sits on 34 acres of mostly open space and offers 110 rooms to get lost in. But is this oldie a goodie? Well, the mansion's been put on the market, taken off the market, and put back on again over and over. And even though it's the largest remaining neoclassical revival architecture from the Gilded Age, you have to be as rich as John D. Rockefeller to own it. Linwood Hall has 100 rooms and takes anywhere from $3 to $7 million a year in maintenance, meaning anyone lucky or unlucky enough to own it will end up spending exponentially more in the long run than any normal person would ever want to. The home has a pretty telling history as well. Linwood Hall was originally owned by Peter A.B. Widener, and after he died, literally no one in his family wanted to inherit the home because of the responsibility. It's too much for any one person to handle. So in 1948, the 100-room house was sold for just $130,000 to the leader of an overseas church who wanted to use the property to help avoid paying taxes. Too bad he failed miserably. Number 3. Winchester Mystery House. A lot can be said about the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California, so much so that it's been the subject of books, films, and television shows, and it's even the setting of a tabletop game. It is as famous as it is infamous, and rightly so. It's one of the weirdest houses in history, both inside and out. It all began in the mid-1800s when the Winchester repeating rifle was used to cut down the American indigenous population in the following years. This weapon quickly became known as the gun that won the West. The treasurer of the company, William Winchester, would die of tuberculosis, and his wife, Sarah Winchester, would inherit this immense fortune. But with that fortune came the alleged ghosts, spirits, and demons left in the wake of the Winchester. One of the wealthiest women in the world was haunted, and so she built her home to keep the spirits at bay. She would build the home until she died in 1922. There are stained glass windows with nothing but concrete behind them, stairs leading to walls, doors to secret passages, and occasionally the home's exterior, where death and dismemberment are just one false step away. This is one of the most popular tourist attractions on the US's West Coast, and it's pretty hard to believe that anyone could have possibly called that place home. In all, the Winchester Mystery House is made of 160 bedrooms, 40 staircases, 13 bathrooms, and 47 fireplaces, all spread across 24,000 square feet of labyrinthian space. Number 2. The Mesa Vista Ranch. The Mesa Vista Ranch in the Texas Panhandle is absolutely stunning. Ridiculously big, sure, but it's still stunning. The property of the late American oil mogul T. Boone Pickens, the Mesa Vista Ranch sits on about 65,000 acres of land that functions a lot more like its own small town. Boone lived on his ranch for close to 50 years, and during that time he built all sorts of amenities both in and around the main house. So for starters, there's the 20 man-made streams and lakes that he was able to enjoy as a part of his conservation efforts towards the area that make for an amazing southern oasis. And seeing as how there's so much property, you can bet that there are multiple abodes to choose from. There's the main multi-structured lodge compound that essentially acts as an on-site hotel for guests, and then if you hop in the golf cart and drive 6 miles southwest, you'll find the Lake House with close to 12,000 square feet of space. The entire compound is absolutely huge, and it's amazing to think that it's really just one man's house. But this ranch also keeps things interesting with its 11,000 square foot dog kennel, a chapel, golf fairways and greens, and even the private airport, plus a pub, of course. It's not a bad deal considering the entire estate costs only $250 million. Number 1. The Biltmore Estate. Home to one of the richest people in the world, the Biltmore Estate in Asheville, North Carolina was built in the late 1800s as the summer home of George W. Vanderbilt. The estate's most notable feature is the French Renaissance Mansion, which is considered the largest private residence in the United States. That's not an easy feat these days to achieve by any means. At the tail end of the 19th century, the Vanderbilts acquired the 125,000-acre estate and built this palatial home in just 6 years. In the end, the home had a total of 250 rooms across 4 acres of floor space. There were 43 bathrooms, 24 bedrooms, 65 fireplaces, and even an indoor swimming pool, which wasn't all that common back in those days. Not to mention, there's the extensive rare art and antique collection, and an astounding 10,000-volume library. But then, there's everything leading up to the mansion itself. Just to get to the front door, visitors, staff, and residents need to make the 3-mile journey up the bamboo-flanked main lane. Not to be outdone, the landscape architect also established the first managed forest in the United States on the estate. And Vanderbilt hired professional foresters at the turn of the 20th century and then opened the country's first forestry school here. George Vanderbilt died shortly afterwards in 1914, and the massive Biltmore estate passed on to his wife, who sold 87,000 acres to the United States Forest Service. But in the 21st century, even more land was sold, reducing the estate down to about 8,000 acres. The mansion finally opened to the public in 1930. More than 1 million people come there every year to catch a glimpse of how the other half lived all those years ago. Every story deserves a happy ending, so the Biltmore Estate became a National Historical Landmark in 1962 and was added to the U.S. National Registry of Historic Places in 1966. I'll see you next time. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.